I thought now would be a great time to get into podcasting because all of the liberals are out in the streets. You know what I mean? All the 24-year-old LARPers vacated their mom's basements and are up in Seattle right now. But when I sat down, I was like, how the hell do podcasters do this? Because I don't live in a quiet environment. The damn AC's running, or somebody's walking around upstairs. I've got people that live in the house. Everyone on the payroll. You know what I mean? And then it occurred to me, I think the overwhelming majority of your podcasters are either wealthy celebrity types or 24-year-old LARPers living in their mom's basements. Mom goes to bed at 8 o'clock and, the house is quiet. It's perfect for podcast recording. But where we left off last week, see what I'm saying? How the fuck can anyone get any work done with that kind of shit going on in the background? I should just pick a different hobby. I should make shit out of metal or something like that, right? Woodworking. That's what suburban fathers do. We woodwork. Doesn't have to be quiet for woodworking. And nobody's trying to fuck with you while you're woodworking because it's dusty and it's loud. Can't watch YouTube while woodworking. It's a total buzzkill because I have to kind of put myself into a different mindset before I start recording. You know what I mean? I really focus in on what I want to say and what's going on with, the world today. And I want to put forward a decent product. And instead, I've got a damn kid falling down the stairs 25 feet from my head. Fathers shouldn't podcast, should we? We should woodwork. I'm fucking up. I need to break out the sandpaper and the bandsaw and go make a fucking cane or something. But I'm going to move forward assuming that all of the distracting horseshit upstairs is done and over with. And if I were doing a Dick and Balls podcast, this would be so much easier. I'd just be like, hey, listen to the noise and shit upstairs. Let's make it part of the show. But instead, I'm going to try to talk to you about real stuff. And I'm not necessarily going to try to sway your opinion. All I really want is for you to look at the situation with a little bit different lens than the one you were looking at it through. If you're a liberal, you're dancing in the streets. This is great. Damn the cops. Damn the man. F Little Caesars. You know what I mean? Burn every target. Burn every target you can find. If you're a conservative, you're like, holy shit with the lawlessness. Well, what the fuck do you mean they're burning targets? What's this going to do to my portfolio? For those of us in the middle, your trash truck drivers, it doesn't really have much of an effect on those of us who, work for a living. Because we're still waking up in the morning and we're still getting dressed and we're still going to the damn job. And if they want to fucking burn Minneapolis, then go right ahead. They want to set up a little autonomous zone in Seattle. I told you what they really need to do with that. They need to just cordon them in there and say, okay, hey, great. Too bad he didn't take over any farmland or swipe some livestock because you motherfuckers are fixing to starve in here. It's going to be one fucking diverse Donner Party in about 3 weeks. But I have to say, I've been kind of reflecting on what my message was with the last podcast, episode 1. I really should have put more thought into it. My message overall on the last podcast was fuck the cops. And looting and rioting is unacceptable, and I hope you guys starve to death. That was, in a nutshell, what I said throughout that 45-minute podcast. I want to kind of temper that a little bit before we get into the topic of the day. Part 2 of the moderate take on the riots of 2020. I made it abundantly clear how I feel about police, but what I didn't give you was the other side of that last week. While I can't stand cops for the shitty things they do and the way they just trample on your civil rights at the drop of a hat, I got to give it up to them for the job that they do and the dangers that they face and the bullshit that goes on with their, with their job, how they're viewed in the community. Because this has been going downhill for a long time. And while I don't like to open my news app and see cops being dragged through the streets, I do understand where the rage comes from. And it got me to thinking, how did we end up there? That's not what police used to be. They were never like that. Imagine the guy, 1926, walking his beat in the Bronx. He's got a billy club and, one of those really tall hats and one of those gigantic fucking mustaches that completely obscures both top and bottom lip. And just to round out the stereotype, he's Irish. Sergeant O'Malley of the 21st Precinct or some shit, right? You could rely on Sergeant O'Malley to maintain the peace and to have a questioning attitude when walking around his beat. He's got your back. He's going to find your kids and bring them home. Fast forward to today, where you see a cop driving around and you're like, oh, fuck, here we go. He's looking for somebody to pull over. What happened in the interim? And I think I know what it is. I'm going to blame it all. Okay. And I have no basis in fact here. Let's just say that I'm not a fucking sociologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to research this. Okay. I'm just a guy sitting in front of a microphone with his kids stomping around upstairs. But I think the difference, what transitioned us from trusty old Sergeant O'Malley to violating your civil rights and fucking stealing your weed so he can smoke it cop, I think what transitioned us was interdiction, the war on drugs. I really do. At some point, police stopped being reactionary and started being taught to be proactive. And when that happened, the entire paradigm shifted. When police drove around, wrote tickets, poured out kids beer, and responded to noise complaints, no one really complained about the police. But when they started receiving training on how to identify warning signs that someone is carrying drugs, how to manufacture reasons to pull that vehicle over on the interstate. In short, when they started being proactive instead of a reactionary force, that's when our civil rights started going to hell. That's when search and seizure came into play. What was it, the 1980s? When search and seizure laws really kind of started working their way into every state's ledger. At a certain point, the quality of individual that was applying to be a police officer diminished. Let that sink in. I'm not going to say that your police departments were ever a bastion for the best and brightest that the world had to offer. No one graduated from Princeton and then went and, took on a career of being a fucking beat cop in Providence, Rhode Island. Like that's not a thing. But there was a time when people of great character wore the badge. It's not that way anymore. I think they take who they can get. So that got me to thinking, I've never really looked into this before, but I just assumed that you had to have some kind of formal education in order to be a police officer. So I pulled up the city of Minneapolis. Their requirements for being a police officer. Must have and maintain a valid driver's license. Successfully complete all Minnesota Post Board requirements, which Post, it's an acronym. I don't know what the fuck it stands for, but it's like cop school. 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks long cop school. State requirements: must be a United States citizen. Must not have a felony conviction. Must successfully pass the Minneapolis PD background check. Then they go into physical qualifications. You have to be able to bench press 105 pounds or 25 push-ups. And you have to do a 1.5 mile run in 15 minutes and 44 seconds. With these kind of requirements, are they looking for the best and brightest that Minneapolis has to offer? No, they're not. Pretty much with these requirements, they're willing to take any warm body who has a high school diploma. Now, why the fuck do you think that is? Why is that? Why isn't Minneapolis PD looking for college-educated, fairly in shape individuals to round out their police force? Because college-educated, fairly in shape individuals have no interest in getting fucking shot at for 31 grand a year. It takes a special kind of asshole to do that job. That's not fair. No, it takes a special kind of asshole to do that job for 31 grand a year. And I got that number from basically just Glass Ceiling, the fucking website, and punched in municipal police officer. Your average starting wage for a municipal police officer is 31 grand. And it says right on there that the majority of your metropolitan police departments are shifting now to an hourly pay scale. What the fuck is that about? What the fuck is that about? I don't want to be served and protected by somebody making fucking $18.50 an hour. I want a salaried, well-trained professional to be policing my streets. Let's review those requirements again. Your educational requirements. They don't say high school diploma, incidentally. You have to have a valid driver's license, must successfully complete all Minnesota Post Board requirements, including passing the Minnesota Post exam, and submit proof with your application. You have to be a United States citizen. You must not have a felony conviction. Must successfully pass the MPD background check. And that's to qualify. And then, of course, there's your fitness, the eyesight, the hearing, the medical and psychological. Let me scoff at that real quick. Scoff. And then there's a bit of a selection process there. Oral board. Insert porn joke here. Who's willing to do that job for 31 grand a year? Who is willing to be a municipal police officer in Minneapolis, fucking Minnesota for 31 grand? Short answer, people who can't do anything else. Or people who are, quote unquote, really passionate about being a police officer. Now, who are those people? People who are passionate about being police officers and who are serious about it, they get a degree. They take care of themselves physically. They get a degree. They do it the right fucking way. And they go to work for Minnesota State Police, which, by the way, requires a 4-year degree. Or they go to work for the fucking FBI or the ATF or the fucking CIA or insert acronym here, DEA, ICE, somebody like that. People who are serious about being in law enforcement. Quality candidates are not applying at the Minneapolis Police Department.